at the back would please come forward? Come and take a pew. Ooh! Sorry, we just handed it to the side. Ladies and gentlemen, please come and take a seat. There are lots of seats here. Okay, let's crack on. Hello, welcome. This is the Restoration Pavilion, and I am standing on the innovation stage. So what goes on the innovation stage? Well, I think you can guess. The clue is in the title. Innovation and restoration. There are so many people, so many case studies doing amazing work who are really pushing the envelope when it comes to innovative solutions to land restoration. And that is what we are showcasing here on the innovation stage. Every day, around lunchtime, we invite 3 to 4 innovators, land restoration innovators, to share their stories. Maybe even give you an idea or two. So, let us begin. My first innovator hails from Colombia, Manuel Almos Munevar. He is the co-founder and COO of the Ecosystem Carbon Conservation Organization. And it's fascinating because he is restoring peatland. You do think, don't you, that once the peatland is gone, and it's taken thousands and thousands of years to form, how on earth do you restore that environment? We're going to find out in a moment. Habitat restoration, reforestation, rehydration are some of the things that he gets involved in. That is his expertise. He brings scientific knowledge and practical solutions. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the stage, please, Manuel. Thank you.
Release forward and backwards. Well, hello, good afternoon to you all. Well, you actually know my name, but my name is Manuel Felipe Olmos. I come from Colombia, and my business is called the Ecosystem Carbon Conservation. Peatlands, nature's time capsules that are ecosystems that seems to stand still. The time still is maintained still over there underneath the quiet and also waterlogged surface. Layers of decomposed plant matter actually get accumulated over millennia, creating carbon-rich treasure troves. So join us as we explore the potential of these incredible ecosystems and why we need to protect them right now. So, as I mentioned, we are a Colombian company pioneering nature-based solutions for the mitigation and adaptation to climate change, focusing on the restoration and conservation of peatlands. Um, so peatlands, these incredible carbon sinks, cover a mere 3% of our land surface, yet they store twice as much carbon as saltwater forests combined. There also are like nature sponges that regulate water cycle and also the impacts of floods and droughts. However, these vital ecosystems are under threat. Some human activities like peat extraction, agriculture, and drainage we are losing are like widespreading the degradation, and we are losing approximately 500,000 hectares of this precious ecosystem each year, which that means releasing more greenhouse gas emissions and representing approximately 4% of global emissions. And like we say, in Colombia, in Colombia, despite their huge, no, it's okay. Uh, in Colombia, despite the huge diversity and abundance with over 5 million hectares of this ecosystem, they are being overlooked by studies, and also they are being consequently excluded from the strategies from the private and public sector. So that's where we identify an opportunity to enhance those types of strategies, restoration, conservation, and sustainable in our country. So that's why we have a comprehensive approach. And what is that? A combining scientific expertise with community engagement. So our skilled professionals can like team up with the local communities to in the implementation of different techniques on restoration and conservation of peatlands, which are the isolation of peatlands, the rewarding of peatlands like the creation of dams, replanting with different important plants like sphagnum mosses, and also some erosion techniques. One important thing, one of our main projects, it's called Peatlands for the Future, that in which we partnered with the Cerrito Santander community in Colombia, and we actually like through workshops we educate residents on peatland management and also restoration. We fence off the peatlands from sheep, a major threat over there, and so far we have restored 4 hectares, preventing over 8,000 tons of greenhouse gas emissions, and also recovering at a small pace the water regulation function, benefiting the local livelihoods. Perfect. Well, thanks to these results, we have some international recognition for being one of the best, like MSM startups at an international, national level, international level with the JECO program. That's why I'm here with the G20 Law Launch Initiative, and also with the International Trade Center, also top 25 in our country from the honored by the F6S to be one of the new companies that are like betting on the water conservation resource. And also we are part of the UNESCO Youth Network Climate Action, and we're actually shortlisted in the Lush Springs Press Award in the next year. Uh, no, it's okay. Well, there are some heroes, but let's keep it up. Well, actually, this is like our main focus, but we also have some other focus, like some consulting services on climate change adaptation strategies, some ESG standards. We train the local communities and also interested institutions, if you want, about this type of techniques. And also, we create some carbon databases and flux analysis in different strategic ecosystems. Ah, well, so the sorry for the presentation for the for the slides. Well, but actually, our incomes, so our business model comes from the fees from the mentioned services, from some impact investment from the private sector, grants from the government, and different other partnerships. So you can actually support our work and support local communities. But well, why this is important for different partners? Why this type of projects for investors and partners? Well, first of all, the demanding on climate solution is actually booming. Investment in nature-based solution needs to triple by 2030 to actually achieve these global climate targets. The global sustainability market will increase, is projected to duplicate from 12 to 26 billion dollars in the next 5 years. And actually, in peatland related, to in order to restore 40% of peatlands by 2050 and turning them into carbon sinks, very important. We need an increase on annual global funding from 19 to 46 billion dollars within the next 2 decades. So this growing demand is going to make us like a key player in the future in this field. So to actually like have this opportunity and to create this new market, we need some partnerships, yeah, investment and partnership from some strategic partnerships. like government agencies. So with some funding opportunities, also we need some to promote some conservation and restoration policies for peatlands, for non-profit organizations, so we can go into joint projects, share knowledge, share our different techniques. Also for research institutions to create more knowledge about peatlands and how can we do some more innovative solutions to restore them. And from the private sector for more funding opportunities, and to help them to achieve their sustainable goals in a more innovative way. So, like we said, tech will offer a unique opportunity to capitalize on the growing demand for the nature-based solution and peatland restoration. So, please, let's partner and work together to build a greener and more resilient future. And thank you for your attention. Welcome to Colombia, the global biodiversity capital. Thank you very much to all. No, thank you.
Absolutely smooth under all that pressure. The tech letting you down. You're speaking a foreign language. So that was well done. Well done.
No, thank you.
So first up, any questions from the floor? Any burning questions about peatland restoration? Yes, lady at the back, please. Get microphones coming your way.
Hey, thank you so much for the presentation. It was really great. I'm Hadir. I'm doing a PhD in peatland restoration. So I'm very excited to everything that you said and talked about today. Just a tiny question. So before you started your restoration activities on the sites, did you get a chance to check the state or maybe your standing point for the restoration for each site? Or you went ahead and noticed the changes on the soil as you continued with the restoration practices? Also, what is the main restoration practices that showed beneficial or gave you better results while restoring the peatland on sites? Thank you.
Now, that is an excellent question. Well, first of all, how can we actually know if a peatland needs to be restored? Is first of all, we need to do some diagnostics in here. We will do some soil diagnostics. So we actually have a partnership with the Javeriana University in Bogota, in Colombia, in which I also made my degree in ecology. And we put some of the soil, some of the soil we have
Soil
from
samples.
different peatlands.
Soil
Yeah,
samples.
some samples from and we determine the level, the carbon they have, and also how degraded they are. And based on that, we will make that decision. Well, these peatlands needs only isolation, so they can have an actually passive restoration. The next one is, we see on the field or outside that maybe this peatland has been drained, so we need to create, I don't know, some maybe damming, so we can actually make the water maintain over there, and in a slow process we can regain this carbon sink that is very important. Uh, Also for the replanting, we our major expertise is in high Andean peatlands that are located in a very famous ecosystem in Colombia that are called the paramos. Some high mountain savannas, very important for us. Water source for many cities like the capital Bogota, like 7 million people, including myself, depend on these peatlands in the Paramo. So yeah, it will be with sphagnum, some mosses over there, and maybe some key plant species like chusque.
Manuel,
Yes.
can I just jump in very quickly? I wonder, what made you go to peatlands? Why peatland? Why are there other lands that are degraded in Colombia?
Yeah, well, first of all, like peatlands are often overlooked over there. Even major stakeholders and private companies, like for example Bavaria, that is the regional partnership for AB InBev, very important beverage company over the world. Well, their source of from their products are the rivers that come from the high mountains, peatlands, and paramos in our country. So, sorry.
Okay. Did you have a question? Can we have the microphone over here, please? There we go. Thank you very much.
Yeah, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for your presentation. It's really fantastic that you're working in Colombia in this area. And we've been working with UN, CGIR, and dozen of kind of group in creating global rangeland standard and Rangeland Stewardship Council. One of the kind of key area you talked about, the kind of carbon and also monitoring elements of the monitoring evaluation learning framework development. We've actually been put a science technical committee of how we can bring monitoring, and I think it would be really good for us to connect in this area. And as part of this group, we started also a program called Stella, and sustainable rangeland kind of project. And that project is kind of looking into the high Andes and looking into kind of bringing a sustainably produced rangeland products on a global stage with value and creating a market to supporting global rangeland restoration element. So I think that especially the high Andes in Guanaco, Vicuna is a really important element of conservation. Vast amount of peatlands and across the kind of it's really important for conservation and those animals and environment. So please do connect with us, and we would be really interested to hear from your project. And mine's not really a question, and I really understand what you're doing and how important it is and how important for us to connect together. And thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you. So we have a connection there, straight off. Okay, Manuel, thank you very much indeed. I'm going to ask you to take your seat back down, and we will hear from our next innovator. Thank you. Thank
No,
you.
thank you all
And of
for hearing
course,
me, and have a nice day.
If you'd like to grab Manuel and develop a conversation afterwards, he will be here. So please do that. Thank you very much. Okay, our next innovator is the gentleman everyone can see in this fantastic outfit. I think that was a very strategic ploy that you did there, because I think everybody on COP16 knows who Sunday is. We all know who you are now. So that is Sunday Jeffrey Mafambe, who hails from Cameroon. He is passionate about climate change adaptation, and in particular, he's going to talk us through the use of technology, remote sensing GIS, to help manage solar-powered tree nurseries. Sunday, it's over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And I'm honored. I'm so honored with the very kind words. I would love to start my presentation with a question. If you grew up in a farming community like myself, and you realize that watersheds are running dry in your community, and many of those watersheds are disappearing, and that agro-pastoral lands are degrading, and your community is witnessing significant crop failure, what will you do? Join the majority to complain or join the few to take action? So I choose the latter. I join the few to take action, and that is why we are here today. So I'm working on a landscape, the Bamukumbi Integrated Community Forest, where we're engaging with local communities to restore degraded ecosystems. The Bamenda Ecological Highlands within the northwest region of Cameroon. So we started this initiative in 2019, and since 2019, we have actively engaged over 300 community volunteers in taking positive action to restore our degraded lands. Some of those actions we've taken are planting 35,000 tree seedlings with over 30 hectares of degraded land now restored. We've actually empowered and engaged over 500 small holder farmers in practicing regenerative agriculture, specifically agroforestry. And we have empowered and engaged the local Mbororo women who have today established 65 regenerative farms. The approach we take is we try to blend ecological restoration with we try to blend ecological restoration with livelihoods, creating livelihoods opportunities within these communities, because the issues with landscape restoration are actually complex and needs holistic solutions to be able to have sustainable solutions. So in 2024, we've been awarded a small grant by the G20 Global Land Initiative, and these grants will enable us to implement one of the most important core activity of this initiative, which will have to do with the restoration of the Bimbo watersheds. The Bimbo watershed currently supplies water to over 75,000 persons in 5 communities. And we have been having consistent crises, conflicts between the various water user groups within this community, because this watershed is degrading and the water quantity is drastically reducing. So some of the activities we'll implement will be to establish a 10,000 solar powered nursery, because we see the opportunity to start promoting solar irrigation systems within this community. And we are looking forward to going beyond just using the solar for our nursery to actually providing irrigation system for smallholder farmers. So we also engage the communities in the tree planting process and natural regeneration process. But most importantly, we are going to build the capacities of the water management committee in using basic technology so they can be able to collect data, but also participate in the monitoring and the evaluation process of this activity. We are going to provide livelihood support to 100 women and youths from the Mbororo and the smallholder farming communities. And specifically here, we are providing livelihood support in area of bee farming. So, who are our main targets for this initiative? We are targeting the diverse water user groups in this community. We're having the pastoralists, we're having smallholder farmers, we're having the fisher folks and the sand miners, because these are the key stakeholders that manages the water resources within this community. These are the people who are having regular conflicts because of the degradation of catchment areas within these communities. So you see, having local dialogues, consultative meetings are a key component of our activities. This is one of the local dialogues we're having with the Moro community, because they are the key users, they are the pastoralists, and they are the key users of water and land resources in this community. So, yes, we feel that through these activities, we'll actually be able to transform this landscape. We're able to create opportunities for people within this landscape. We're able to strengthen their resilience and their adaptive capacities to climate change. But most importantly, one outcome we want to have will be to establish, to give leadership to people within these local communities through capacity building and through enhancing the improving on their livelihood, to be able to build their local capacity and have champions within these communities that will be leading the restoration initiative, because we believe that the power is in the people, is with the people, and the power is in the local communities. So, so these are just some of the approaches that we are taking, that we have been taking so far to build the capacities and keep these communities motivated and engaged in the process. So we train the Mbororo women, and it's good to know that before our intervention in this community, these women were not involved in any form of economic activity. But today we are seeing success stories. They are growing their crops, they are feeding themselves, they are contributing to family income, and we already have some successful cases of women who are moving from regenerative agriculture to keeping goats. And we think this is what we want to see, the transformation within this landscape. And we also directly engage with local communities. This is one of the sessions we had earlier this year, with young people participating in these activities. And you see the person holding the tree, that's the community leader, because we make sure that we bring the community, that's our traditional leaders, into the planning and the implementation. So I want to thank you, and I'm open for your questions. And also, I look forward to having the opportunity to collaborate with you to scaling this initiative, and of course, developing the most another important sector of this activity, which is ecotourism. Thank you.
Sunday, thank you very much indeed. And that was going to be my first question. action. It's going, it's going. It's yours.
Thank you, thank you. My name is Wilson from Kenya. I wanted to find out how long did it take you to achieve the expected results that you are targeted? Thank you.
6 years. 6 years because we started we actually started consultation in 2018, but actual implementation in 2019.
Can I ask you why you were interested in the length of time? Why is that a particular interest to you? Is that something you've started yourself? Are you on the path?
Yes, we are on the path of establishing such one, but we are using a different model. We're working on aloe vera, the aloe vera in my area. Yeah, in Aridea. So we want to, it's called aloe secundiflora, and we wanted to use it in arid lands in Kenya to ensure that people get income and probably re, reintegrate with the normal pastoralism work so that they get income from the plant as a business venture. Thank you.
Yes, I think it's very important. You may have even more results if you start with livelihoods, because this is what the communities need. They need to survive, right? They need to survive, and land degradation issues are interconnected. If you target just the ecological part of it, you miss having the community on board. But because we are able to motivate the communities, they have been part of this project, and that's why we keep having results, right? We have today over 300 community volunteers that have actively participated in the tree planting. They are actively participating in the monitoring, and of course the post-planting maintenance, which is very costly. So we're able to maximize resources because we are working directly with the committees and they are supporting the process. Thank you.
Gentleman at the back with the green coat.
Yes, my name is Abiodun from Sustainable Environment Food and Agriculture Initiative in Nigeria. Yes, we. I have two questions. The first one is about the role that the sign miners played in your project. I would like you to elaborate more on that. Then, secondly, we did a similar project in Nigeria under the pollinator-friendly agriculture. So, but we discovered that after doing the capacity building with the local communities, and we decided to empower them with some beehives so that they can continue the process. We discovered that in the sequence of time, the community abandoned the beehive and they lost interest in the process. So my question is, how are you able to sustain the interest of the community throughout the process? So I would like you to share more light on this. Thank you.
Thank you. I will choose to start with your second question because sustainability is very important. It's not just about having the activity. You know, we started with the planning meeting, having a local dialogues with these committees, and they actually express the needs of what they want. So, and one key thing we do when they express the need, and we now had issues of beekeeping, right? That came from the community. So now we put the communities into groups, and within the groups, we are building their capacities, and we are having local leaders, local champions within those groups. So what we want to do is we want to see these groups inspiring actions across their communities. We started with the groups in 2020, early 2023, the first three groups. And we are seeing them already taking action, going beyond what they were doing. And that's why today we want to create more of those local community-based groups, build their capacity, and engage them in the process. So they feel like this is about us, right? And when they start working as groups, they have a larger market for their products. So they're making more money, and they won't see the need to stop engaging in these activities. And now you asked about the sand miners. The sand miners, when water degrades, the quantity of sand that we produce, that they can harvest in this community is actually decreasing, and that is why they're having issues with the other water user groups. So we identified them as one of the beneficiary groups, right? Because we feel that it's also important to have an alternative source of income. Engaging them in the beekeeping means that they will not solely depend on sand mining, and that will actually help to reduce conflict within this community.
Thank you. Yes, madam.
Okay, thank you. Irisia from the Bahamas. I heard you and with the ecotourism part, and that's something that we're working a lot on, our eco and agri-tourism. So I have two questions in regards to that. How are you controlling biosecurity for those ventures? And do you have, does the community base have like group insurance in case people get injured? So we have a lot of tourists. That's our number one industry. So these are things that we're trying to get our agriculturalists and nature parks on. But of course, we a lot of our tourists come from, what is politically correct way to say this? Places where you could get sued a lot. So how is your insurance covering that, or do y'all have insurance?
this is this is a very technical one. Myself, I'm not insured. Well, because it is not, it's not, well, myself, I'm not insured because in Cameroon is not the insurance policy is not, I mean, like, it's not very common, right? And that's the reason. It's not because we don't understand the importance, but now we have issues. I think beyond insurance, what we really need for our communities will be protective materials. Sometimes engaging large scale engaging community volunteers at large scale needs a lot of resources to provide protective materials. So this is what we try to provide to them, so they can. We also have first aid services that we can support them in case of minor injuries. We can support them, but at the level of insurance, I think there's something we always also have to start advocating for for policy change, right? Policy influencing.
Biosecurity. How do you deal with biosecurity?
Well, we mostly do this through alternative livelihood support for these communities.
Now, can I ask you very quickly, how do you deal? You don't want to, stop the tourists from coming.
No.
So how do you deal with that? Just very,
So
it'll give an idea to other people.
no. So, I mean, some areas you have to take out private insurance, but I was trying to see if there were other creative means that other persons have doing. That's one of the joys of coming to these conferences, to see if there was like a workaround. So we are working on getting group insurances, because we finally got agritourism council, so it could be at a group rate for persons who are going to have people come on their farms. But you have to understand the liability when you want to do that. So we're also looking at the forward and backward linkages as well. But with tourism being a heavy sector, the reason we focusing on that is because we have a lot of mass tourism, and we're trying to get more into eco-tourism, agri-tourism, cultural tourism, for people to have a more holistic experience about the Bahamas, because people normally just think Bahamas is Nassau instead of the 700 islands, 2,400 keys that we have.
Okay, thank you very much. Come
Thank
see
you.
me afterwards, because I went to
I'll be right here.
a tourism farm in Zambia,
Uh-huh.
and I can always put you in contact with them.
Great.
Yeah, so grab me afterwards. Sunday, thank you very much indeed. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next innovator hails from Switzerland, and he's the CEO of Tree Global. And Gregory Hess has a career that's been defined by innovation, persistence, and all of this towards solving social challenges. He actually began his career with the United Nations, so you sort of come home. And really focusing on emergency relief operations, and that was during or within conflict zones, primarily Bosnia. He did go on to create a management services company to work on the most pressing international development challenges across Africa, Europe, the Middle East, and Asia. Essentially, he is seeking to develop a high social impact business. So I'm really interested to see why he chose environmentalism. High impact, how long before you get those impacts working through? Why don't you come and tell us? Here we go. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. Is it on? Is that going?
Yes, I think that's on. It's on?
Great. Thank you. Thank you very much. I've actually been at this for a while, and I think one of the drivers, and I kind of want to start from a different point in this, is at the high level, we are at the front of a global economic transition. $120 trillion reindustrialization of the economy. And I think this is really critical from 2 points of view from nature. One is nature finance. For the first time, we have the ability to channel or to tap into private markets to work for nature, not against nature. The second and the really big consideration in this is how do we make sure that this money and this transition also creates intergenerational wealth for the countries that are restoring and protecting this nature. And this is a big drive behind Tree Global, what we are trying to do. We're actually, if don't read all of this, I'll give you a summary. We're a 15-year-old company. Our origins are as a tree nursery company, so establishing tree nurseries at a scale between 2 and 10 million trees per facility. We've operated nurseries in across Asia, Africa, and now, in fact, here in Riyadh, where we operate the Green Riyadh Nursery for the $10 billion urban greening program. Unfortunately, it's not yet open to public, but it is a phenomenal facility just outside of, just beside the airport here in Riyadh. And we are in the process of building on our nursery and community engagement activities to really drive restoration at scale. So our origins are innovating in terms of how we create what I call tree production factories. Again, about scale, about technology, about jobs, about professional development inside the nurseries, and ultimately about producing much higher quality plants to drive the end outcomes for beneficiaries. So for example, we've worked a lot in West Africa in cocoa coffee with smallhold farmers where we produce seedlings for them using the same genetics, for example, seeds from the Ghana Cocoa Board, but by investing in growing systems, really helping to drive survival rates, taking on-farm survival rates from 50% to above 90%, decreasing first yield from 4 years down to 2 years. These have massive impacts on farm productivity, farmer income, and farmer prosperity. Now, translating that into restoration at scale, because this is an innovation forum, I focused more on some of the innovation we have to put together. And I think really innovation is not the same as invention. So in our nurseries, we invent, we create new containers, we work on growing media, we do a lot of research and development. But to do restoration at scale, you really need to innovate on a whole number of levels. And the first is really how you create the legal frameworks and the operating frameworks in countries where carbon regulations are still being formed to make sure that the incentives of all stakeholders are aligned to the end outcomes in terms of environmental outcome, but also revenue and revenue sharing. And so, that's the starting point for us is we, of course, need to attract investment to countries, but we also need to make sure that government and communities separately from in government, are participating in the revenue generation of what's being created. Second is we also have to recognize that not all land areas are equal from the point of view of the ability to mount investable projects. And so we take a very science-driven approach to identifying areas of interest where large areas of land, community land, government land, private land holdings can be integrated into a restoration program that will generate carbon yields, particularly for all the beneficiaries. And that also includes risk assessments. But to be honest, the biggest driver of sustainability is the communities and the people, which also means the biggest risk is the communities and people. So we really need to look at, okay, where are the levels of community engagement? How do we work with communities to engage them? Otherwise, none of this will be sustainable on a 40 to 50 year project, let alone over the lifetime of a forest. Third area of innovation is really in finance. Again, because there's now ways to tap into private capital, there's also ways to tap into much more innovative financing to drive scale. You're not waiting for a donation or a philanthropic grant, etc. You're trying to find new ways to use all those tools in financial innovation that have created wealth for a lot of people to create a lot of benefit for nature, whether it's bonds, whether it's leveraging debt, whether it's creating sovereign wealth funds for nature. There's a number of innovative finance opportunities when we're talking at scale. And fourth is you have to deliver, so you have to put all the pieces together in a really, I would say, in a very high quality way to deliver not just nursery, but nursery, forestry, which is restoration and protection, and community development into an integrated program. So those are the kinds of innovations that go into driving at least our projects of restoration at scale. And really the measures of the projects, finance, carbon is the finance. It's a tool to finance, but really the outcomes are around nature and communities. These are some of the measures that we track and aim for in our projects in a sort of what I'd call a standard project unit. And it includes trees, it includes carbon sequestration, it includes employment, professional development, and how we drive rural economic prosperity by creating additional business opportunities embedded in the project. And then to give you a sense of scale, a couple of the projects that we're putting up right now, one in DRC, it's an initial 50,000 hectare project, which we're putting together financing via equity and debt, and similarly in Ghana on a similar scale of 50,000 hectares. But again, we really have we look for degraded lands that we can restore and create these benefits for. So thank you very much. I'm pleased to take your questions and have follow-up discussions afterwards. Thank you.
Gregory, thank you very much indeed. Questions, please? Can we get the microphone? I'll grab this one. Don't worry. Okay.
Thank you so much for this impressive. I would love to see you coming to grow trees in Namibia. I wanted to know the impact of high performing seedlings. Sometimes one fear that when you bring them into the community, they might become more invasive than the others. But I just wanted to know how to address those fears of invasive, because coming from a dry country, sometimes high performing seedlings are likely to outperform some of the natural vegetation, and then people fear actually that becomes a problem in the long term. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Great question, and thanks for the opportunity to clarify. So first of all, we don't import species. We don't do genetic modification. It is native species where we invest in really advanced nurture techniques. So here in Riyadh, we're doing about 320 desert species of trees and shrubs. In West Africa, if I take that example, the performance is really about the nurture side. So trees are living things, and if you look at, I'll take cocoa for an example. In Ghana, cocoa yields have not changed in 100 years. They're the same in 2020 as they were in 1920. and it's so cocoa output globally has increased on the back of farmer poverty because they're not earning more per hectare than they were, and on environmental degradation because we're expanding very low productivity farming by cutting down rainforest. So when we talk about improving seedling performance, it starts with the nurture. So the same way you have twin children, their genetics are identical, but if you grow them in different environments, they grow very, very differently. If you grow them in an impoverished environment, they struggle and they never catch up. If you grow them in a wealthy environment with socialization and healthcare and education, they reach their full potential. So it really, from our view, it's about how do you help native species achieve their natural potential consistently, so that they have the most impact.
So Gregory, let me get this straight. So these are indigenous species. Where do you source the seedlings from, or the seeds from, or the root cuttings from? The original material, is that sourced in the country, or is that from a lab? I'm just trying to work out.
It's always sourced in the country.
Okay.
So we work with research institutes on seeds and seed banks where they exist. We work with local NGOs that are already collecting seed species and know where to find them. When that's not possible, we set up seed collection teams or cutting collection teams. So there's no import. Yeah, that's part of building the whole value chain.
That was brilliant.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
So, Madam, I hope that answers the question. So the value is in the care.
The value's in the care.
Yeah. Okay. I had a question at the back, and then I'll come to you, Adam. Yes, please.
Thank you for the presentation, Mr. Hess. I've gotten a privilege to travel to different areas and actually kind of worked with organizations like yours, with my tree planting organization, a reforestation organization. One of the challenges that I meet in communities that I've gone to, at least to most of the African countries that I've traveled to, is that there is a bushy encroachment. And in most cases, organizations and companies like yours, I'm not saying specifically yours, they come and pump into the communities or societies with the seedlings and trees, and they never really follow up with what happens after then. It's good to restore land and plant trees and everything, but does your organization have metrics on following up what happens after? Because that's literally the challenge that we're facing when it gets to restoration of land and tree planting and agroforestry and reforestation. We get into areas, most basically some of the areas that don't need tree planting, that need to either grow the bushes that have been there, and we pump trees there and we end up doing bushy encroachment. So I was just wondering whether your company has the matrix of following up what happens after putting trees in the societies, and are they actually doing it the right way of restoration? So
Social accountability.
So I would start by saying there is no after because we build for the long term. First of all, we create local companies, employ people locally for the duration for a 40-year project. So there isn't a drop in and, here's your seedlings, we'll take your carbon, thank you very much. We build the companies locally. Second is organizations like Sundays are critical to how we learn and how we scale, because it's much better for us to identify an organization like Sundays and help them expand the capacity. We can focus on some areas that are highly specialized, say in some of the nursery systems, and we build teams again from the local community, training people up for long-term jobs. I mean, our operation in Ghana has been going 14 years. Of our original 14 staff that we hired, 12 are still with the company. They've grown and flourished into management positions in the company, and they've continued to grow the business as a local entity. So it is a long-term. There is no short-term uh, intervention here.
So it's not just a greenhouse, come and buy the seedlings and then goodbye. You see it all the way through.
All the way through, and it starts with that framework agreement with the government. So there's a license to operate in the country, and then building the companies from the ground up with the communities that we're working in.
Hence the importance of the legal framework. And is that the longest part of the process? Is that the biggest challenge?
Well, Sunday's going to cry when he knows how long I've been trying to get Cameroon across the line. But it took, for example, this is very cutting edge. Carbon is new, etc. So for a lot of governments, you need the time to bring them up to speed to make sure they understand what the implications are, etc. But DRC took us 2.5 years to get the legal agreement before we could start operating. But getting that right is the foundation.
We do have one more question.
Okay. So my question has a few parts. Yes, I need more detail about the climate financing. I don't think that, I know it was a short presentation, but I don't think that it was hit on enough. Like, how does it work? Do y'all participate in a carbon credit market? Like, how does that mechanism work with your organization? Then two, even with the legal framework, when you come into a country, do you buy the carbon credits, or is that like a part of it? And then three, how does a country like sign on to this project, or you have to have an interest in that country in order to sign on?
Okay. So I'll work in reverse order. One, we're focused on Africa. I'm sorry for Barbados at this time. Bahamas, excuse me. Sorry. Two, we do not. So we take degraded lands, and by investing in those lands, we create carbon removal credits. So it's not a carbon asset that exists in the country. We're helping the country to create it. Third, in terms of finance, it really is investors are investing for a share of those credits. So then the financial innovation comes to, one, how do you get the country on the side of being an investor, not just waiting and receiving a royalty, but actually participating as an investor to increase more of the wealth to the country? And then how do they leverage international finance, funds, guarantees, etc., to create more debt, which lowers the cost of financing but increases the amount of credits then that go back to the country? So that's what we're working on. There's no recipe. It's just slogging and pulling the pieces together and pushing corporates and pushing funds, and then working with some of the public funding to support that.
Gregory, we're going to have to pause there, but thank you very, very much. Thank you.
Thank you all.
And of course, Gregory is here for at the end. I kind of feel as if I told you. An master, what's the sit-down brainstorming session on climate finance, masterclass of climate finance. So I'm finding a lot of people don't quite get how it works on the investment side. So I'll put that out to my boss next time. Okay, our final innovator today is a gentleman who's come all the way from South Africa. How's it? Johnny Miller. Johnny Miller is the co-founder of African Drone. And it's all about using drones high up in the air, exploring, now listen to this, wicked problems from the ground and from the air for positive social change. What is a wicked problem? Johnny, come up here and explain. Thank you.
Cheers. Can I stand behind? Is that right? And advance it that way?
Let me make my briefcase out the way. Yeah.
Thanks, everyone. Hi, my name is Johnny. I'm from African Drone. You can hear from my accent, I'm actually American, but I do live in Cape Town, South Africa. So welcome to everyone from Southern Africa here. We're a nonprofit network of drone pilots and innovators. We have headquarters in Cape Town, Nairobi, and Lagos. We're incubated by Code for Africa, which is Africa's largest civic technology organization. You can see us there. We see firsthand every day the impacts of drought, desertification, land degradation on the continent. Our pilots tell us about it, and our pilots also are working in those areas. From extreme drought in northern and southern Africa to flooding in East Africa, our continent experiences increasingly erratic weather shifts due to climate change. Worst of all, in many cases, these countries are actually under-resourced and need help, basically. So that's where we step in as African Drone. Sorry. Luckily, we believe in Africa Rising. So the self-help network of pilots and innovators that we've built across the continent in a nonprofit empowers civic drone pioneers. We believe that drones on land, in the air, and under the sea give citizens powerful new ways to understand their world and to improve public accountability. This is our network on the bottom left hand here. It's growing all the time. We have about 1,000 pilots in 35 countries. We empower our local pilots through a network that offers seed funding, skills development, resource sharing, advocacy, and networking opportunities for our members. By relying on a distributed network of members instead of just one central location, we can adapt quickly and effectively, scaling up as we need. So I want to talk about one of our projects recently, which dealt directly with land degradation. This is in Mzuzu, Malawi. We were actually asked to come out here on behalf of our partners, WRI, and the local partner, Wells for Zoe. So basically what's happening is Malawi is suffering from tremendous deforestation due to charcoal production. So a lot of the tree cover is gone. It's been gone for a long time. So all the topsoil is running off with erosion into Lake Malawi and causing crevasses, sinkholes, unproductive land. And this isn't just a Malawi problem either. 65% of the entire continent's farmlands struggle to produce crops. More than 270 million people face chronic hunger. And many countries have lost more than 90% of their original forests. And this devastation is increasing. 2022, Africa lost 3.46 million hectares of tree cover. So our project partners, Wells for Zoe, as you can see there on the left, and WRI enlisted our help to monitor the effectiveness of a tree planting scheme that WRI was implementing with the Bezos Earth Fund. So they were going in and they were using special techniques, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with, to replant in a sustainable way. But what they wanted to do is they wanted to monitor the effectiveness of that planting. So traditionally, you would have either used some form of Earth observation, whether aerial surveys or satellite, or ground-based surveys, hiring local people to go out, measure canopy, and measure the width of the stalk on the plants that they were planting. But what they wanted us to try to do was to fly over the entire site, which is about 200 hectares at 1 centimeter ground sampling distance, which is a very high-resolution survey. And it was a pretty rugged area, so it was during the rainy season. As you can see, we were stuck in the mud. There was about 200-meter elevation change between the lowest and the highest points of the site there. And 1 centimeter means a lot of photos taken at a very low altitude. So we brought in a local pilot. This is part of our sort of standard operating procedure, is to bring in a local pilot and partner them with a more experienced pilot in kind of a mentorship situation. So we had Tadala there in the center, and then Chris on the left-hand side there in that photo, who came in and spent about 5 days mapping that area into a highly accurate orthomosaic. Operating in rugged rural environments is hard work, and this business model can be challenging for established for-profits based outside the continent. So we specialize in building a network of pilots and interested parties who are experienced in the region, and then we allow them to make things happen ethically and accurately. What I didn't mention there was also the king sitting there in that photo. So a huge part of this, as everyone sitting in this room probably knows, and we like to think that we have an ethical approach towards coming in and working in areas that our partner pilots are local to, but perhaps we as African Drone are not. So we've done other projects that relate to journalism, to mapping, to land rights. The one on the left, we did a project in Makoko, which some people call the Venice of slums. It's an area of Lagos, which is about 300,000, they actually don't know, people living on stilted houses in the lagoon. And we were the first organization to go in and to actually map that area using drones and survey partners on the ground, so people from Makoko, who would go in, and then they would actually have a GPS unit, and they would mark exactly where the churches were, the water points, the schools, and then we mapped those two, or I'm sorry, we combined those two maps together into an interactive map that Humanitarian OpenStreetMaps, one of our partners, could then use to to create a map of that community, which is super important. And then on the right, this year was really devastating floods in Nairobi, all over Kenya, actually. And so we deployed a quick response drone team to go in and actually map some of the affected areas in the Nairobi River tributaries. This is important for a couple reasons, not only to provide some sort of witness, to bear some witness to actually what happened here in parts of Nairobi that people perhaps aren't paying attention to, the mainstream media, but to also provide some evidence into who was affected and how the government then responded to those floods, which in this case was demolishing the houses that were within 30 meters of the river course there. Drones can really turbo boost storytelling of land issues on the front lines of Africa's most pressing stories. This is actually my photo on the left. I have a photo project called Unequal Scenes that's been very successful. So we've built relationships with Unequal Scenes, but with all of our partners, with some of the world's biggest media organizations. So we have a relationship with photo editors at New York Times, with Time, Guardian, a variety of African publications as well. And we really work to also highlight some of these issues in the media, both mainstream and non-traditional media, and really empower people through story grants and through other small seed funding to be able to tell their own stories, some of these stories that people don't get to talk about very much all over Africa. Lastly, I believe and we believe that drones are a democratizing technology. This is the first time in history that we've been able to basically fly above our own communities and see what's going on without resorting to either government power or really expensive technical solutions. So we believe that's incredibly empowering and incredibly democratic. So part of our mission also is we build these convenings. We have drone camps that we offer in a variety of cities around the continent. The one on the left is in Cape Town there, where we bring together journalists, activists, people who are interested in drones to experience drones and to learn more about the kinds of techniques that we use with drones. So it's not just kind of like a fun flying session. We talk about using drones for land rights, using drones for mapping. And then the African Drone Forum, which was last hosted right before COVID in 2020 in Rwanda, brought together hundreds of drone professionals, the president of Rwanda, Paul Kagame, and we participated in a flying competition, or we helped arrange a flying competition that people participated in, which you can see there, which was really successful. So we're hoping to get the next one going in 2025. And then finally, we're a diverse network. So we come from, like I said, I was born in the United States. I live in South Africa now. But we have regional offices in those 3 cities that I mentioned. And we really would love to grow with core funding support. We would love to grow with equipment, but more than anything, we'd love to grow with jobs. So access to work for our partner pilots. We operate as a decentralized network and basically refer all the work that we get out to our partner pilots. And that's primarily how we keep our members happy. And if you would like to get in touch, there's my email. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. I think we've got a short video to play, is that right?
Yeah.
Fantastic.
My journey as a drone pilot begins from background of film and technology. I decided to pursue drone piloting to enhance film. My journey as a drone pilot begins from my background in film and technology. I decided to pursue drone piloting to enhance filmmaking and engage with technology in a way that supports the community. reached out to us. They needed support with mapping of their area, and we were able to find a legal and professional drone pilot who would be available to actually do the mapping for them to have an aerial view of all the efforts in terms of restoring or engineering wetlands. African Drone is a network of drone service providers, and its main mission is to empower local drone pilots within the different countries of the African continent through skills development, resource sharing, advocacy, and networking opportunities in the different initiatives that they work on. My name is Murakunya. I'm a linguist working on conservation concerning the environment. It is an important natural resource because it is the main water supply for the residents of Kikuyu, more than 60,000 per month. The project is there on Limit and Botanic Gardens. We decided to partner with nature to see how we can do restoration. We have some species that are regarded as rare. We have some that are endangered. We have some that are facing extinction. And so by bringing them back, we are bringing back the living ecosystem. I'm saying this one is quite big. When we apply drone technology, we'll be able to get the exact coordinates. We'll be able to identify the specific areas that require restoration. We will also be able to monitor the work that we have been doing. And that is the reason why we are working with Africa. They are going to help us to first map the area. They are also going to help us to map out our restoration activities. This engine will allow us to quickly modify resolution beyond the engine to proximity limits. This one will drone technology significantly enhance the ability to plan and monitor, leading to an effective and efficient restoration process in which to set an ambition. Palit-palit kami sa kaway. Ngayon pa lang ako sila na ngayon, bago ko na. Experience. To see the beautiful view and how the balance of the area. We're going to focus on the screen as we do the songs. Watching the life, the scene, details of the ecosystem, the patterns of the flow, the diversity of plant life, and even the wonder of food and animals. It's a moment of reflection, considering how technology can play a role in protecting such an ecosystem. That continues to play its role in combating climate change through carbon sequestration that has been happening through the peat and the organic matter that is found on Earth. We are also looking forward by establishing those botanical gardens, so we are bringing back biodiversity. So we have the photos of the regions, and also have the cycle, botanical garden.
you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And that was a film by Johnny Miller's organisation called African Drone. Would anybody like to ask Johnny a question on how? Okay, we have a question. Lady over here. Give me my microphone.
Hi, Johnny. I do like this project quite a bit. And I'm just wondering, what's your business model? How do you raise the money to keep going?
Well, that's a good question, and it's a tough one. Right now, we're incubated by Code for Africa. That's why their logo is up there, and I'm actually a Code for Africa fellow. So right now, Code for Africa does a lot of misinformation, disinformation work. They work with companies like Meta, Google, a lot of ex-journalists combing social media, combing traditional media for influences, things like that. And African Drone was actually born out of my interest in journalism and the Unequal Scenes project. That's how it actually all started. So that photo on Time Magazine of the inequality, that's basically how the project started. So it kind of, in a way, started backwards from a sustainability model, from a financial model that made sense. And right now, what we're trying to do is to figure out if we can create this network sustainably through referrals, basically. So can we take a part of every referral and keep ourselves sustainable? Right now, it's not really panning out that way, but Code for Africa is basically keeping us afloat, which is why I'm coming to events like this, hopefully partnering with people, because we're doing really good work. And there's not that many African drone organizations doing similar work on the continent.
Any more questions? I have one final one. Just very, very quickly, do you have a payload, so to speak, on the drone? Or is it, does that make sense? Do you know
Yeah, no, it totally does, yeah.
Okay.
We actually don't really do very much drone work ourselves.
Okay.
So we're a referral network. So we've got about 1,000 pilots, and a lot of these pilots have some of the drones that you've seen here. So these big heavy lift drones, spraying drones also for pesticides, drones that obviously lift cameras and other forms of payloads. And I mean, they're not one of our partners, but there's a lot of delivery drones that are popping up. Startups all over Africa, like Zipline is probably the most famous one, delivering medical equipment. And they're, I mean, in our extended network, which is incredible because they can actually fly 60, 70, 80 kilometers, drop off a package of medical equipment in rural Rwanda, and then return back to their base for another supply and do that repeatedly throughout the day and night. It's basically like transformed the medical delivery ecosystem in Africa, companies like that.
So you are the one-stop shop for drones on the African continent. So you have the network of the pilots who are doing the work.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, all right. Any more questions? I'm about to call time. One more question. She really likes your project.
My second question has to do with legislation, because a lot of this is something I wanted to use for our films, but then it's always a challenge, how do you get legislation, because in some countries they don't allow it. So how are you getting over that hurdle?
Yeah, I'm so glad you asked that. Actually, the initial idea for the inception of African Drone was because I was traveling from Cape Town to Nairobi in 2016, and I was not able to find information onto whether I could do that legally with a drone. I didn't know whether I could bring a drone into the country. So I reached out to my co-founder, Christian, who's actually in the photo, the very first photo of the slide that I show, and he basically told me, no, was the answer. Like, it'll be seized and you'll be held at customs, and maybe you'll get it back, maybe you won't. So I was thinking there's got to be an organization that I could help create or create myself that would share information around the legality of drones, which is, as you say, so opaque and complicated throughout the continent, even now, 7 years later. So some countries have drone legislation on the books, like South Africa. Some don't. Some, it's a gray area in the middle. So what we like to do with our network is to basically have preferred vetted pilots in every country that you can have access to, that will tell you the law, that will partner with you so that you could actually either rent their gear or they would fly for you, which is what we do with, for example, that pilot in Kenya. And we've actually got a tool on our website too, which I don't think any other website has yet because it was developed for us. But basically, it's a portal where you can click on any country in Africa, actually worldwide, and it'll show you the up-to-date drone legislation and a clickable map. So if you go to africandrone.org, you'll see that in the regulation section, drone regulations tab.
Johnny, thank you very much indeed. Very exciting.
Thank you.
And thank you, ladies and gentlemen.